right, so now we're gonna move into the GI tract. So the sequence of organs that go from the esophagus all the way down to the rectum, we're gonna speak about them one by one. We'll touch on a little bit of function, but we're gonna speak much more about function in our lecture class, so I will leave that for then. So we've got the stomach to start. Now the stomach is this sac, basically it's a hollow organ, and the main function of the stomach is to digest food. So when we say digest, we want to distinguish digestion from absorption. So we're not really absorbing nutrients or food here in the stomach. All we're trying to do is break them down. And we'll talk about things like acid that are located in the stomach that help with that breakdown of food. Parts of the stomach are the greater curvature, so this large flexure here. The lesser curvature, which is the smaller bend on this side. This gives the stomach this kind of bean-shaped appearance, both the greater and lesser curvatures. We've also got the fundus of the stomach, which is this top portion of the stomach here. We've got the body of the stomach, which is most of the organ, right? All of this is the body. And then we've got the pylorus, which is the distal opening into the duodenum. So the pylorus is a really important region. It controls how the stomach empties into the intestines. And so we have a bit of smooth muscle here, which really controls, relaxes in order to allow the stomach to empty, and then tightens in order to allow the stomach to kind of churn and break down that food. So there's a regulated process of how the stomach empties that is facilitated by the smooth muscle at the pylorus. Leaving the pylorus, we then enter the duodenum. So the duodenum is the first of three parts of the small intestine. We've got the duodenum, smaller portion, more proximal portion. We've got the jejunum, which is the middle portion. And then we've got the ileum, which is a really fatty part of the small intestine, which is the most distal part of the small intestines, okay? And again, we'll talk more about individualized function of these areas, but mainly the small intestines are for absorption. There are things like increased surface area. We've got certain enzymes that are released in the duodenum, and these modifications facilitate the absorption, which is moving those broken down nutrients across the GI wall. And we'll talk more about that in lecture. All right, moving on to the large intestine. So this is the large part of the colon. And when we leave the ileum, we then cross over into the cecum. This is the area that we call the ileocecal junction. And an important structure that we encounter here at the ileocecal junction is the vermiform appendix. Now the vermiform appendix, vermiform because of the way it's shaped, it's looking like a worm almost. If you can compare this to the vermis of the cerebellum, that'll kind of give you a clue as to its shape. There's a lot of variability in the appendix. Sometimes we may not see the appendix because, as you may know, it's commonly inflamed or infected and therefore has to be removed. But the appendix is thought to be involved in somewhat of an immune role in the body, and that is not really sure, that's not really clear, but what we do know is that when it becomes inflamed, it's really problematic, and getting rid of it is the best solution. Then we get into the cecum, so this sort of distended area where we get to a larger lumen, as we can see here, compared to the ileum, is the first part of the ascending colon, that's called the cecum. Then we get into the ascending colon, the transverse colon running across, and then the descending colon running down. Now, two important regions of the colon here are the right colic flexure, sometimes called the hepatic flexure. This is where the colon takes a turn. And this is obviously where it interacts with the liver. The liver is going to be in this area, hence the term hepatic flexure. And then the left colic flexure is where the colon takes this left turn, this turn on the left, where it comes in contact with the spleen, sometimes called the splenic flexure. And then we can speak of the sigmoid colon. So we know the word sigmoid means S-shaped or S-like, and this is that windy portion of the colon where we twist and turn to get into the anal canal, and then that becomes the rectum, and then the opening out to the external surface is called the anal canal. Important distinguishing features of the large intestine are called haustra. Haustra are these out pouches or pockets of the large intestine, again, unique only to the large intestine. They are created in conjunction with the Taenia coli. Now, the Taenia coli are these bands of connective tissue that are running longitudinally along the large intestines. And so the stretching of this connective tissue is what kind of gathers the colon with these out pouches or pockets. And this is thought to help with absorption of water, thought to help with solidification of extra GI waste so that can be expelled. And that's the main function of the large intestine when compared to the small intestine, is going to be solidification of waste as well as reabsorption of water that the body may need, and then expelling that final waste product out. Other features here are the epiploic or mental appendages. So these again are unique to the large intestines. And these are the fatty appendages or appendices that are hanging from the Taenia coli as well as from the Haustra. And these are what kind of distinguish the large intestine from other areas. Let's move on to the liver. So the liver, we know, is one of the largest organs, the largest organ in the body. It's really versatile in its functions, a lot of different functions in the liver. We've got digestion, with bile being secreted, helping with digestion. We've got the liver secreting some of our clotting factors that help to clot the blood. The liver is also important in terms of detoxification of the blood in the body, and a lot of other functions that we will speak about as we go through various systems. Structures associated with the liver are the coronary ligament, which is on top of the liver, right? These help to anchor the liver to the anterior abdominal wall. So does the falciform ligament, which runs down here. And this kind of helps to divide the right and left lobes of the liver, the falciform ligament. The falciform ligament ends in ligamentum teres or teres. This is sometimes called the round ligament. And then we can obviously speak of the right lobe of the liver and then the left lobe of the liver. There are two other lobes which are more internally located, but we do not have to know those for this course. We just will discuss the right and left lobes. The biliary system. So the biliary system describes the flow of bile. Bile, I mentioned earlier, is one of the digestive juices, right? The liver functions as an exocrine gland in this way. It secretes substances that help with the breakdown of food. So does the pancreas. And so we'll speak about that flow of bile from where it is made in the liver to where it is stored in the gallbladder to where it is then released into the intestine to help with emulsification of food. So we've got the right and left hepatic ducts here, right hepatic duct, left hepatic duct. Those converge together to form the common hepatic duct. That will then lead to the cystic duct. And now the cystic duct is this sort of bendy or windy vessel that goes to the gallbladder. And then that's how bile, is stored. And then when you have a large fatty meal and you need that bile to be released to help breaking down that meal, the bile goes from the gallbladder out to the common bile duct, and then it enters the duodenum. Okay. So the important structures that we are interested in are the right and left hepatic ducts, the common hepatic duct, the cystic duct, and then the common bile duct. And then obviously the gallbladder and then the pancreas, which is here. Now the pancreas is also important here because it does release enzymes as well into the duodenum for breaking down